Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back to my channel. Today, let's look at Lost Zone. How's the engine really going to perform over in Worlds? And I thought I'd combine both Giratina and regular turbo build, kind of put it into one. These two are definitely the strongest version of the Lost Zone sort of engine, really utilize it to the best sort of effect. So let's jump in to see exactly how it's going to be performing over in the World Championships and if it will be a good sort of pick. So over if we see an NAIC, Lost Zone Box was 13.3% of the meta, being that second place sort of a big powerful archetype. Definitely something which we kind of come to know. Lost Zone, its engine is nowhere to really disappear at all. It's incredibly powerful utilizing the flower selection ability with Comfy. You've got Cramorant to attack for free and Sableye to do 12 damage counters everywhere. Whereas you've got Giratina, which can do that huge sort of damage with that Lost Impact, and then Star Requiem to pretty much KO anything in the active sort of spot. So very, very powerful archetypes, leading it to be in Japan, both of them being a tier 2 archetype. I would definitely say the Lost Zone Giratina build is definitely kind of like being the more underrated version and kind of potentially going to be maybe one of the most popular sort of version. It's always had its time to shine, but it's never really kind of got to that level of amazingness where we've kind of like, I really see it as. Lost Zone Box, in fact, has been 40% of the online sort of meta, so very, very high build, focusing more on the turbo build, but being 57% win rate, or being 11 wins to that sort of thing in the last couple of weeks, whereas Lost Zone Giratina is kind of been around the 7% of the meta game, same win rate, but having 10 wins as well. So both very sort of high win rates, and I would say Lost Zone Tina over in online sort of tournaments the last couple of weeks have been very, very popular, performing incredibly well, focusing more on what the Henry Brown sort of did in his sort of list of an NAIC. So I generally think that Lost Zone Tina is actually in a pretty good sort of spot, whereas I still think the classics or turbo build of Lost Zone is kind of up there being the version to kind of like look at. So let's look at the sort of couple of builds, look at the different sort of engines for Giratina, as well as look at the engines for Lost Zone regular version. So let's look at the top 8 turbo build of Lost Zone. And we can see here it's got the classics of attackers, Dragonite, Raikou, and Drapion. These and as your V sort of choice, as well as Luminion. These are definitely the more common sort of builds which we've kind of seen. Drapion kind of helps, especially obviously to get rid of Muse, but more importantly, you can use that because you're playing Mirage Gate on Gardevoir AXs, and you're pretty much going to be turbo really, really aggressive in attack. It's because you want to attack with Dragonite or Raikou turn 1, potentially even a Rainic Greninja if the opponent misses a mana fee. These huge sort of effect of these attacks from Dragonite pretty much having the likes of doing 250 damage and Raikou to do 220 if both of them have a full bench. It's really, really powerful and how all of their merits. Dragonite V obviously KOs pretty much everything, and then you can use Sableye to kind of like close up the rest of like the VMAXs and the V-Stars, whereas Raikou V is a really good Lugia sort of counter, pretty much KO in most sort of basic Vs. I really like the style of deck here, and this deck really focuses, you can see, on that draw sort of factor. The Pokestop is really, really powerful because you play so many item sort of cards, kind of like going through your deck. Is very, very powerful. Fortunately, you may have to get rid of some of your energies, but we have Super Rod now, which is an incredible return, obviously, in the deck. Really, really favored in that, but playing 3 of them to kind of like reuse any of your energies, so constantly can be recycling your Mirage Gate. The amount of Lost Vacuum as well as the Forest Seal Stone is really, really powerful. The Forest Seal Stone could get that chorus you might need, or potentially the switch card, which you might want to get, try and like get the Pokemon in the active spot or that extra sort of confidence of damage there, and obviously fueling up your Lost Zone engine. This deck here obviously plays a load, not really many supporters. You may play the full Chorus Experiment, but the one Bossordus and one Clara is powerful. Clara to kind of reuse your Sableye and get your other sort of attackers is powerful, and Bossordus to kind of like get that extra store KO, which you might need for Dragonite and Raikou, because you have Sableye, which can return all that sprinkle damage, to kind of finish off the attacks, what Dragonite kind of has to offer. This build is definitely a lot more stronger sort of build. I think it's more popularized in the Lost Zone sort of engine, and I'm a huge fan of it. I think it's very, very powerful. I really like how this deck sort of style works, and I've even tried a couple of games on it, and it feels a bit more fun than like the old sort of build of Lost Zone this where, yes, you are focusing more on the big one-hit KO or else, but I think it's still a very good sort of place over in the metagame. The other build, if we just look at a late night sort of list here, we can see the Kyogre build as well. Deck which is definitely a bit fallen away from favor. Kyogre used to be the Lost Zone deck of choice to play, but we kind of have seen it a bit falling away. It is still playing the Pokestop to kind of be aggressive as possible, get to the bottom of your deck, but having the return of Super Rod as well as energy recycling in this deck, you can really get all your energies back in the discard pile to really utilize that big Aqua Storm attack with Kyogre. Other really good attackers in this as well is obviously an extra copy of Sableye, really trying to focus on trying to get that out as quick as possible as an attacker. But you also have Snorlax as well, that unfazed fat, making sure it's not getting affected by any effects, and that Thumpy Snort to 180 damage with 1 copy of Cramorant. I think this list is definitely very, very powerful. Probably not as strong as the turbo build. I think the V and obviously Forest also adds so much to the deck, and I think a lot more in the consistency build as well. So that's definitely something I would focus more on the turbo steel build here. But their Kyogre build is definitely very nice as well to think about. Purely on the basis you can like draw for your deck as quickly as possible, try and get an Axe Storm out to get those easy KOs as well. But having them more likely of having Mana Fees out and play, it could definitely kind of like unfortunately lose its merit as it once was. So if we just look at Lost Zone Giratina, we've got a couple builds as well, which I kind of want to showcase here. And we can look at the last chance qualifier, and then the second one, its first place list here is very, very powerful. The Giratina obviously is more of the sort of main attacker of choice, having the 2/2 line as well, which is powerful to do 280 damage whenever you like, as early as possible, with the likes of that Mirage Gate and the switching options, and obviously Boss's Orders. Not Boss's Orders, Chorus's Experiment. Path to Peak is kind of like focused really powerfully in the Lost Zone engine for this style of deck, trying to like disrupt a huge amount of Pokemon, like slowing down Gardevoirs, and more importantly, like some of Xianpao and Mew. It's really, really powerful, and that's why I think Giratina kind of like gets its sort of merits in this style of archetype. I love the Hawlucha in the style deck here. Potentially getting that extra prize with the likes of Sableye is really, really powerful. I like here, especially getting KO on a 270 HP Pokemon if they've already got some bit of damage from that is really, really powerful as well, which I absolutely love in the style of deck here. I also think like one Cramorant isn't too bad as well, and also the 2 Ionas, 1 Roxanne is really, really powerful. Decks I've kind of like going around, I've definitely be focusing more on having like 3 copies of Destructive cards, because it really surprises the opponent. Having the extra sort of Destructive card as well, you could potentially get rid of an Iona. The opponent might think, oh, they only play 1 Iona, 1 Roxanne, and you could really surprise them with that second Iona later in the game, because they're not really expecting that. So that's why I think that second card of either Roxanne or Iona is super, super strong. Heavy Ball, I think, is really powerful because Hawlucha is that one of any playlist or other one of sort of really important support Pokemon like Radiant Greninja, Manaphy, and then Cramorant's another attacker. Kind of getting that extra card out as quickly as possible with Heavy Ball is super, super powerful. No Ultra Ball, because I generally think you do not need Ultra Ball. You really need to focus more on your basic Pokemon, kind of getting your Giratina Vs out there as early as possible, because you can even use them a bit seeking to kind of like fuel your Lost Zone, which I think is very powerful. And having Pokegear gets that extra sort of draw power to get to that Chorus's Experiment, to draw into your Giratina V stars, and then you should absolutely be hunky-dory and easy to attack as quickly as possible. Energy Count being the 4-3-3-2 split, very much we've kind of seen as much more popular sort of build, focusing more sometimes on the 4-3-3-3 sort of split of energies, but again, it's all about the space here, and they're focusing a lot more on their switching cards and a bit more less of them. I like to think that's still absolutely fine with it. Only one Super Rod is definitely still okay. I also sometimes like having the 2 copies of it, and maybe even a Clara, but again, the super space, the different sort of space here, that's why Hawlucha is definitely in there. That's a really nice sort of tech option as well. Another list as well, if we look at another winning list from the late night series, like I mentioned, it's performing incredibly well over on the online sort of scene here. You can see here, this is a build which I'm more focused on more to play, less sort of tech options and more straightforward, getting as quick as possible to get the easy KOs. Energy Recycler and Super Rod I really like as well. Kind of like utilizing the Mirage Gate later on the turn is very, very powerful, and then Super Rod as well to get your attackers back again. I also really think having 3 copies of Path to the Peak and then the 4-3-3-3 split of energy is really, really powerful as well. More destructive of elements and more energies, kind of like the Jet Energy as an extra switching card, really help fuel Lost Zone to kind of be that really powerful archetype. And that's one thing I absolutely love about this deck here, as well as obviously playing the classic 4 switching card and then 2 escape rope, or sometimes you play a 3-3 split of each. I really like this deck. I think Giratina is in a really good sort of spot. Definitely something that should be on your radar. And let's look at its matchups. So we look at this matchup wise here. Giratina has an okay sort of matchup around the South board. Lost Zone engine, I think it's definitely a regular Lost box. It kind of struggles a little bit because you have to really know when you're going to plench down your Giratina. If it's a turbo build, definitely focus more on sometimes these single price or attackers. You do play more Sableyes and focus more on the Cramorants down below, or even the Comfies as well. Because if the opponent gets any sort of chance of trying to get an easy 2-price KO, they can really run away with the game, and that's something you should really be careful about as well. Lugia Archeops is definitely something which I would say you kind of potentially might struggle with a tiny bit as well. Purely on the basis that you are sometimes that can struggle getting a big one-hit KO because of the energy, V-guarded energy attached to Lugias, as well as obviously having some single price attacking option. Mew, I would say, is definitely focusing a little bit less favorable on the likes which aren't playing the Drapion build. As you can see here, Lost Box has a really good both Fusion Mew and the double turbo Mew, but the rest of the other Giratina and Gudra, I added Gudra in there just to kind of like, so you can see some of its matchups and why I think Giratina and Lost Zone is much stronger, then kind of shying away from using Drapion. And they can't easily get those big one-hit kills unless they get those easy like big one-hit kill with the Star Requiem with Giratina. And obviously it can lose incredibly hardly with Gudra because you're not getting that extra one-hit kill. And they can just reuse all their energies and cycle all the Mews back and forth. That's why I generally think that could be a bit of a struggle. And if you generally think Mew is going to be a good pick, I would potentially kind of like try and see if we could take in a Drapion in play, or potentially get a Cleansing Gloves or Choice Box so you can easily get that big one-hit kill capability. Other sort of decks as well, I think like the Fringe decks as well, you kind of have an okay sort of matchup around there. The Xian Pao, the Miraidon, I still say is a bit more favorable, and even Gardevoir as well. This is why the deck is played super powerful. That's why Gardevoir has been left in check for so long, because you can have the likes of Sableye and Radiant Greninja to really like threaten their curlies on their board state and really slow down their any sort of gameplay as well, which I absolutely love about that's why Lost Zone deck. Unfortunately, it's slowing down a stage 2 Pokemon, which we haven't seen have great success in such a long time. I think that just shows a huge strength of what those two cards really add to this format and add to this sort of deck. And obviously the Arceus build kind of can be a bit more of a struggle. They have some healing aspect. It's a very high HP Pokemon. And maybe sometimes, again, they play the V-Guard Energy, so then potentially having 300 HP. So you have to use your Sableye to sprinkle some damage into the end game. So if we just look at some prediction overall, I generally think the Lost Zone package overall is going to be about 15% of the day one meta share. Kind of like combining it all together as well. Potentially we could see it being like 25% if we see Giratina be as powerful as it once was. But I'm predicting about 50% because I'm going to say we're going to see some really fun creative sort of archetypes as well here. I generally think the highest Lost Zone Tina will be played because Japan absolutely loves that deck. It's really good in the best of 1 format, but how will it really survive in a best of 3? We obviously had this huge sort of talking of right now, and I generally think that Giratina could in fact be the one to play. I think if you want to make a statement at Worlds, I think Lost Zone Giratina is that fun, it's that creative deck which you can kind of play, whereas the turbo build, you kind of don't really change too much about it. You only play the certain amount of cards, and that's why I think the Giratina build might potentially be the more popular build. But I think Turbo Lost Bone will be the highest Lost Zone style deck, focusing more on like the Sableye or attacking options instead of the other sort of Giratinas, and trying to get that big turn 1 attack, getting 7 in Lost Zone, which is very easy to get that big 1-hit kill with Dragonite. I think it's in an okay sort of position at Worlds. I think like this and Gardevoir, they are like the tier 1, tier S sort of tier decks, the ones that people are really teching, the ones that people are really testing against. So I think that's the archetype which people are really going to be scared about and really going to be wanting to absolutely be and test against the most. So that's definitely something which I would be considering about going to Worlds. It's going to have its target on its back. People are going to be scared about this deck and are going to be really worried about what in fact they could potentially be facing against. So I hope this video has been helpful and informative to see exactly where these decks I think will be placed over in the World Championships in just a couple of weeks' time. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to comment down below what deck would you be playing at Worlds. As you know, my pick is Xian Pao, but do you think Lost Tina or the Turbo Lost Zone has actually got a shot at Worlds, potentially get into that top 8 placement or even that win, which would be amazing if Giratina does in fact get there. So I will be back in a couple of days' time for another video. Don't forget to join the channel. It really helps out, and you really help make a huge impact on what the future of the channel may look like. I'll see you in a couple of days. Bye for now.